Good afternoon and welcome to Christ the King's BBC School News Report.
As our top story today, there is a rising concern about the Zika virus. Junior doctors' strikes take place today. Is it better for the UK to be in or out of the EU? The EU referendum. Fight for the White, Isle of Wight funds. For sport today, there's been a success for Christ the King College against Medina College in rugby. But is rugby a really safe sport for schools?
For our top story, 3 British travellers have been diagnosed with the Zika virus. But is this a big threat to us? Will this affect our future generations? I'll be handing over to our reporter Sam for more information.
I'm about to have an interview with Mr. Foley about the Zika virus in the Upper College Science block. What do you think the possibilities are of the Zika virus spreading to the UK?
It's quite high. I mean, the amount of people who travel on aircraft, the number of people who will travel with carrying the virus and not know that they're carrying it. They won't be symptomatic yet.
What is your best advice you would say to help stop the spread of the virus?
Anyone who's travelling to a country where we know the infections are present, make sure that they're screened when they return.
Travellers have been diagnosed with the Zika virus, a mosquito-borne disease linked to severe birth defects. The Britons travelled in Colombia, Sierra Leone and Guyana, although it is not clear whether they have returned to the UK or if any of the 3 are pregnant women. A statement on Public Health England's website said ZIKV, Zika, does not occur naturally in the UK. As of 18th of January 2016, 3 cases associated with travel to Colombia, Sierra Leone and Guyana have been diagnosed in UK travellers. Further cases of ZIKV are expected to be reported in other countries, particularly in the Americas, where the mosquito vector is present. Health officials in El Salvador have warned women against falling pregnant as authorities struggle to control the spread of the virus. Vice Minister of Public Health Eduardo Espinosa urged women to put off pregnancy until 2018 to avoid the risk of passing on the Zika virus to their children. We'd like to suggest to all women of fertile age that they take steps to plan their pregnancies and avoid getting pregnant between this year and next, he said. Although the research is still underway, there is significant evidence to suggest a link between the virus and the spike in the number of cases of microcephaly, a neurological defect in newborns. Babies suffering from the condition have smaller than normal heads, preventing their brains from developing properly. Travel warnings are in place for over a dozen countries as the virus continues its rampage through South and Central America. Brazil and Colombia are the worst affected, although 5,397 cases were detected in El Salvador alone in 2015 and the first few days of this year, Mr. Espinosa said.
The ongoing junior doctor strikes are taking place today. How is this affecting the residents of the Isle of Wight? I'll now be handing over to our reporter, Rosie, who will give us more information on this story.
The health professionals on the island play a vital role in keeping its residents safe. There is only one hospital on the Isle of Wight, St Mary's Hospital, which is located at Newport. The hospital offers a great deal of services, including a mental health service, which has 50 beds with over 1,300 cases in their care.
With the ongoing junior strike, it is crucial that these members of the community on the island still receive the healthcare they are entitled to and deserve. These are different areas of mental health, and at St Mary's they offer drug and alcohol teams, child and adolescent mental health services, CAMS, of which helps a larger number of 0 to 18-year-olds who have a range of different mental health issues, as well as other areas of support.
Whilst the emergency services are a huge part of the care of the community, there is a worry in areas that how the strike will affect people who are mentally vulnerable. I spoke to an ex-patient who had been helped by CAMS at the age of 11 to 14, and she gave me a statement about how the strike would have affected her had she been in need of medical attention during the strike.
If the doctors had been striking when I was in hospital, I would have felt lost and completely alone. The nurses and doctors helped me in a way I didn't know I needed. If they weren't there, I don't think I can begin to explain how I would have felt.
The question on people's minds at this time are, what will happen to those in need of emotional support when the doctors are striking?
Should the UK remain in the EU? A vote will be held on Thursday the 23rd of June 2016 as to whether or not we should stay in the EU. I will now hand over to our reporters Trinity and Rosanna, who will give you more information on this story.
Thank you, Erin. Anyone in Britain who is eligible to vote can have their say about whether or not Britain should stay or leave the European Union. David Cameron has been under a lot of pressure recently from his cabinet and fellow MPs on whether or not staying in the EU is a good option for Britain.
Do you think that Britain should stay in the EU and why?
Yes, I think we should stay in the EU because I believe that staying connected to our European friends is very beneficial I agree, because we learn and develop together as a continent. We will take a step back if we leave.
The EU and why?
Yes. Yeah, probably because it's like better for me, because otherwise to the UK I would have to get a visa.
Back to Erin and Bella at the studio.
Isle of Wight residents have been encouraged to sign a petition to call on the government to look at a new way in which the island is funded. The Fight for the Wight campaign has already attracted more than 2,500 signatures from Warwick's locals. Our reporter James has more.
The government have announced an additional 415.6 million of transitional funds be divided between councils nationally over the next 4 years. But none of this money has been offered to the island.
Well, I think that what we have to really consider, the most important thing is that we keep the island's interests at heart. We make sure that people are happy, and whatever we can do to improve their lives, we have to minimise cutting as much as possible. We are in a massive deficit crisis, I understand. And there's so many old people that are missing out on experience. They're retiring here. If there's no bus service to actually take them around the island and enjoy their last years, what are they going to do? We have to remember that the Isle of Wight isn't a secluded area. We're not just a little island on the south of England. We are an important part of the country. We can't face all these massive deficit crises. We can't face the big cuts that we are having. So.
Opinion on the campaign's chances of success right now?
Well, I hope that the campaign can really have a big start, especially if there's enough support on the island. Social media is so big amongst young people that hopefully it will gain the momentum to really a big thing on the Isle of Wight. Potentially, if they look at the support from the Isle of MP and certain members of the council, they could have even more momentum. But by starting on social media, I think it's the best chance to having a big sort of campaign to start. I think it's the best way of doing it, to be honest.
Thank you very much.
Just talk.
I am incensed that the government has again refused to listen to the plight of the island and the needs of our island community. We have been urging them long and hard to do so, and have produced detailed financial analysis showing how the island is being prejudiced, but all of these have been ignored. Not only is the island being forced to cut millions from their budget, they are now in a position where they are firing people working for the council. Back to the studio.
For sport today, the Christ the Kings under-16 rugby team have had a very successful win against Medina College of an ending score of 38-0. However, doctors are suggesting a ban of rugby in schools, naming it as a too dangerous sport. I'll be handing over to our reporter Toby for more information.
I have been lucky enough to talk to two men with royal insights to the dangers and experiences of the game. Mr. Wavell, who plays rugby and suffered a very serious fracture to his spine during a game of contact rugby.
See, the arguments against it, because it is dangerous, and students get concussed, they get broken arms and legs, etc. But it's like anything, that's life, isn't it? You can break your leg doing, on your weekend, playing around with your mate. So it'd be a shame for the game, I think, if it were to be banned.
We are now going to speak to Deputy Head of Christ the King College, Mr. Gurney, who has many years of experience working with students teaching and playing rugby.
On schools rugby, I think what will happen is that rugby will be played through stage, not age. So that basically means that students will end up playing rugby together based on their size and their ability, not specifically in age groups. I think overall what will then happen is rugby will still be played within schools, outside of schools. I think there is more education that needs to be actually made for students in relation to the safety. There is more safety now than there has been, particularly in scrummaging, and I think that obviously that is beneficial to try and eliminate tackling.
It is now time for the weather, and I will be handing over to our reporter Roland for the update.
Thank you, Ernst. We had a bit of rough weather yesterday, but we see that in cows. Here comes the sun, doing more to be walking out by people in the southeast. And it's possible there can be more clouds on the way. We start off with some temperatures as low as 1 in Shanklin, about 6 in Chale, but in Fairfield feel like 3, and temperatures as low as 1 if you live around Rad. We see winds going as fast as 7 miles an hour, and temperatures gradually rising as the day goes on. We see it's going to be some beautiful weather midday, but unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be an hard day's night, because it's going to be as low as 1 degree in some places. But I've got to take it to ride, as I've got to admit the quality of weather is getting better, especially in the Rookley region. Tomorrow we see it won't be very pleasant if you're a day tripper, as you probably have to get back inside when the rain starts blowing from the east. You look on the BBC website for all your weather information, available 8 days a week. But for now, back to you in the studio. Thank you.
And that's all from us. Good afternoon. How's your day been, Erin? Good. Oh, good.